going to crumble. Inch by inch, play by play, till we're finished. We're in hell right now, gentlemen, believe me. And we can stay here, get the shit kicked out of us, or we can fight our way back into the light. We can climb out of hell. 1 inch at a time. You know, when you get old in life, things get taken from you. I mean, that's part of life. But you only learn that when you start losing stuff. You find out life's this game of inches. So is football. Because in either game, life or football, the margin for error is so small. I mean, 1/2 a step too late or too early, and you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. The inches we need are everywhere around us. Hell yeah. They're in every break of the game, every minute, every second. On this team, we fight for that inch. On this team, we tear ourselves and everyone else around us to pieces for that inch. We claw our fingernails for that inch. Because we know when we add up all those inches, that's going to make the fucking difference between winning and losing. Between living and dying. I'll tell you this, in any fight, it's the guy who's willing to die who's going to win that inch. And I know if I'm going to have any life anymore, it's because I'm still willing to fight and die for that inch. Because that's what living is. There's 6 inches in front of your face. Now I can't make you do it. You got to look at the guy next to you. Look into his eyes. Now I think you're going to see a guy who will go that inch with you. You're going to see a guy who will sacrifice himself for this team because he knows when it comes down to it, you're going to do the same for him. That's a team, gentlemen. And either we heal now as a team, or we will die as individuals.
Ideas are bulletproof.
Welcome to the show, guys. It's Friday, August 19th, 2011. This is Down the Rabbit Hole, and I'm your host, Popeye, from FederalJack.com. Today, I'm joined by a very good friend of mine, and he's taken an hour out of his time tonight to come talk to me about a rather serious issue, and it's something that I've talked to him behind the scenes about multiple times. And we decided last night that with everything that's going on, it's kind of important that, I do a show covering this topic. So tonight I'm going to talk about Anonymous and Lulzsec. And since I myself am not an expert on Anonymous or Lulzsec, I wanted to bring you guys somebody that is somewhat of an expert on them and knows, the story and has actually asked people behind the scenes questions about Anonymous and Lulzsec and all these attacks and everything. He's a white hat hacker. He is one of my IT guys. You guys may have heard him interviewed on Alex Jones's radio show a few times. His name is Winston Smith. Winston, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming on and taking the time to explain, at least what you've observed and what you know about Lulzsec and Anonymous, because there's a lot of people out there that are confused about them. I myself, I know not all of them are bad, but I know that 1 in 4 hackers is a Fed or a Fed informant. So to me, it kind of looks like they're being used to stage these quote-unquote attacks, which are really nothing bigger than like DDoS attacks. Maybe once in a while they release emails or something. But they're going to – I have a feeling they're going to be used to bring about an internet kill switch, demonize the internet, such things like that. And that's what you were telling me about. What's your personal opinion on – let's start off with what do you feel about Anonymous and Lulzsec themselves as organizations?
Well, basically it seems like these organizations are good in principle, and they're definitely an interesting study in the way of social groups get together and the way they interact. It's a decentralized group. There really is no leadership on any of them. It's mostly a group of people who hang out on different internet relay chat rooms, and they just people basically suggest ideas, and if the horde thinks it's good, it'll kind of escalate up. And they say there's no leadership and that type of stuff, but there ends up being a small handful that do kind of rise above the herd because they kind of demonstrate that they have more skill than the rest. However, the majority are just kids. I'd say between the ages of 16 and 21 who are just jumping on trying to jump on a bandwagon of something they see in the media is cool, and ending up getting themselves in trouble with it. Originally, Anonymous was started off as kind of an anti-Scientology protest group, and it just sort of evolved from there because the idea of a decentralized group that's kind of amorphous and latches onto any type of cause that is deemed just is. In essence, it does seem like a good thing, especially if they're actually doing good projects. Like they have operations against Federal Reserve, operations against arresting people for feeding the homeless. Those are all good causes, but they seem to advocate breaking laws to actually get these points across. And anytime you see that, you kind of have to wonder who's behind it, especially when the financial motivator isn't really the motivator isn't really financial, which is the case in a lot of attacks. It's kind of branded as hacktivism, but the amount of time that you see being put into it and the people who are running it, they're not really getting caught. Whereas the people, the 16 and 17-year-old kids who are running the low orbit ion cannon from their home IP addresses without a proxy, those are the ones who are getting hit. And those are the ones who are getting the visits from the FBI, whereas the people who are actually carrying out sophisticated breaches know how to hide themselves. And one of the things that we're investigating as a very strong possibility is that a lot of the people, or at least some of them, who are able to carry off the sophisticated attacks and be able to get into the media and manipulate the media opinion and get the stories on mainstream media so quick, might actually be working with government. Or government and federal contracting interests that would benefit from seeing a more restrictive internet with all sorts of hacker-proof tools and anti-hacking forensic software and intrusion detection systems and intrusion prevention systems that cost millions of dollars that they would like to see get set up because this rowdy group of hacktivists on the loose, so you have to buy all this latest gear. And when in guys, it's not really to attack. It's not really to prevent attacks. It's really to just surveil the dialogue that's going on.
So would you consider this to be a new branch of the military the military industrial complex, like maybe a cyber military industrial complex wing?
There's definitely a cyber military industrial complex wing. One of the primary corporations for that is Booz Allen Hamilton, and a slew of other federal contracting companies, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, the Lockheed Martin. They all have cyber defense wings now, and they're private organizations that are mostly contracted out to provide security for Defense Department and federal networks. But for the most part, they're just selling really expensive tools that don't do all that much in protecting any of the equipment, and are used for the most part in just kind of doing surveillance of the actual traffic that's going through. And for a classified military network, that might be necessary, but eventually they want to get that type of technology deployed onto civilian networks, using threats like Anonymous as the indicator, and
like a false flag, almost like 9/11.
Yes, and and we have pretty good confirmation from some of the main players who have actually, some of the people who've supposedly been victimized by Anonymous and lost their entire careers over it. They've confirmed to me in private conversation that this is a false flag to get some kind of draconian internet legislation passed.
And that's what I thought. And that was actually that was the tipping point last night when I said to you, when we were having this private conversation, and I said, you need to come on the air because we need to tell people what's going on. Because it needs to be on record so people can hear that this has been called out way before something happens. And they can say, see, Lulzsec and Anonymous, they're terrorists, internet terrorism. We need a 9/11, we need another Internet Patriot Act, which they already have sitting in a drawer, people. They have it sitting, waiting. We're going to break. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss the rest of this interview with Winston Smith. We'll be right back.
What you did that day, kill your own citizens to advance your ways. All my real patriots stand up and say 9/11 was an inside job. They lie, they scam, they cheat and steal. They plot, they fund, they act, it's real. They watch, they hunt, they punish and kill.
We're back, and we're live on this Friday, August 19th, 2011. This is Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Popeye from FederalJack.com, and I'm joined today by my good friend, Winston Smith, a white hat hacker, and he's breaking down what's going on with Anonymous and Lulzsec. Now, Winston, could you do me a favor real quick and explain just to the listeners what a DDoS attack is in kind of basic layman's terms, just so they understand, because some people don't understand that basically a DDoS attack is nothing more than a virtual sit-in.
That's essentially right. It's hyped up in the media as being a dangerous hacking attack, but for the most part, it's just a bunch of computers hitting a website at the exact same time and just visiting it and refreshing it over and over again beyond what the website can handle, because there's so many doing it at the same time. And there are several different ways to protect against it. It's really doesn't do any damage. It just prevents the site from being available while the attack is going on. And there's two ways that people carry out these type of distributed denial of service attacks. One way is by attacking computers and infecting them with viruses, and then the virus will take over the computer, and it'll be set to attack a certain target. But one of the way that Anonymous and Lulzsec are known for doing it is they just tell all of their followers to download a program, and they kind of become a consensual botnet where they'll use all their computers to attack the target that that everyone in Anonymous has agreed on, and that's called the LOIC, low orbit ion cannon. And the problem with that tool is there's no built-in support to be able to use a proxy server, which is a server that you can bounce off of to mask where you're originally coming from. And because of that, people were just using it from their regular IP addresses. And if they used a VPN service or a virtual private network service, that would have gone a long way to protecting their original locations. But for the most part, that's how people are getting arrested. The PayPal and Visa are just pulling their access logs and finding the IP addresses that have the most requests during the time that they went down, and then turning those IP addresses over to the FBI. And the FBI is just kicking in doors and finding that it's mostly just a bunch of kids who wanted to participate in something that they thought was cool.
Yeah, and they end up going to prison. Meanwhile, the real orchestrators of this thing have, yet to be, caught. And again, like you said, Anonymous has done some good stuff, and so has Lulzsec. So I'm not bashing them in any way. But what I'm afraid is that I'm afraid that these guys are being used, when it comes right down to it, because you understand, all about the New World Order, Winston. I don't have to explain to you. You and I have plenty of conversations for years about this stuff. So these guys are social engineers. And what bothers me is I see that these young kids, these, like you said, these guys want to just, they want to jump on the bandwagon and be part of something. They're going to be used to, bring about the death of the free internet.
Right, and the targets that Lulzsec is going after, for the most part, they're totally worthwhile targets. The various law enforcement agencies, the Arizona law enforcement, they're going after they're going after military industrial contractors. Even had they have all sorts of things against Fox News. Targets that people normally hear about, and they go, yes, screw those guys, they suck anyway. But for the most part, it's going to get a lot of popular support, and people are kind of going to get behind it and kind of cheer it from the sidelines quietly. But then the media exposure of it is going to get senators to start passing the already pre-written legislation to start implementing more restrictive internet policies and handing out contracts to these big firms that are providing quote unquote security software when it's really surveillance software.
Yeah, and they've obviously created a cyber warfare industrial complex which wants nothing more than to take back their baby, because the internet was originally created by DARPA, and they had the scientist over at CERN that took the ARPANET, which is what DARPA had, and they took that and they created the World Wide Web, and they mixed it together, and bam, that's kind of how the internet as we know it today became born. And they only really made it to spy on us, and here the citizenry took it, and we're using it against them, and they're so pissed off about it because, they used to just make fun of us. Oh, those crazies. You can't believe anything you read on the internet. Can't believe anything you read on the internet. They're just crazies. All those people in their mom's basements, all those conspiracy theorists. A couple of years ago, alternative media bypassed the mainstream media as the go-to source for over 50% of Americans. And that was a couple of years ago, so you can only imagine it's probably like 70, 75%. Nobody believes the mainstream media anymore because they're always caught lying. And then it's always, oh, well, we were mistaken or this or that. Or they, like Winston was just explaining, they take a little DDoS attack and they make it sound like, oh, my God, they broke in and stole state secrets. I mean, it's a DDoS attack. As long as the attack stops, you call the person who has your server. You say, "Hey, do me a favor." You call the hosting company and you say, "Do me a favor, reset my server." And within like 15 minutes, your website's back up. It's one of the most peaceful hacktivism things you could do, if that's what you want to call it. Like you said, they were so-called hacktivists.
Yeah, and in retrospect to that, the DDoS attacks are also used by as extortion tools a lot of times. Criminal groups will use DDoS attacks, and they'll go after gambling sites and stuff like that, saying pay us this amount of money, or your website's not coming back online. And for those type of sites, time is money, so a lot of them will pay out. So it can be used as a tool for evil, but for the most part, it's the way Anonymous is using it is they're not really using it for extortion. They're using it for digital sit-ins and hacktivism, cyber protests, and when you look at the way that the current state of affairs is for this new cyber warfare military branch of the military industrial complex, the big thing they all need now, their pay dirt, are APTs, or advanced persistent threats, and and that's just industry slang for them, meaning what is going to be around for the next few years. That's not just some virus that's going to be around for a month or two. What's going to what's the advanced persistent threat that's going to be attacking us? Is it going to be a cyber espionage attack? Is it going to be hacktivists? Is it going to be criminals? And are they going to be relentlessly trying to break into our networks, and what kind of defenses can we protect against that? And you'll have all these companies with a slew of snake oil products to just slap a black box in front of their network, and it's like add something to their already existing firewalls and say, yep, now you're protected from hackers, and oh, by the way, you can also monitor everything, all the communications going on and coming in and going to and from your network. And again, on a private network for a private corporation, that's fine. It's their business. They have the incentive. They have reason to monitor that traffic. But when their goal is to implement and push this on commercial ISPs to monitor all civilian traffic, and they're going to use things like Lulzsec and Anonymous as the reason. And a lot of the data breaches that are taking place from Lulzsec and Anonymous that are just dumping people's personal information into the public domain and then having them become victims of fraud. The rationale from the group is that this will anger people and motivate them to go to their government and and demand reform in internet security and demand that they take better care of their data, which is exactly what the government will say they're going to do, and then pass all the legislation.
See, so that's why I say it's very shady, because why would quote-unquote hacktivists want to help the government if they're supposedly doing their hacktivism because the government pissed them off to begin with? So you see how Anonymous might have started as something good, but parts of it are being corrupted, and who knows, even maybe shady things are going on by government agencies and they're just blaming it on Anonymous and Lulzsec. We'll be right back. We're going to get into Anonymous, Stuxnet, and more when we come back.
I am everything.
Welcome back, guys. It's August 19th, 2011. This is Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Popeye from FederalJack.com. Hanging with me today is Winston Smith, and he's been breaking down what's going on with Anonymous and Lulzsec and these quote-unquote hack attacks and everything else. And last segment, he was talking about and trying to explain what a DDoS attack is and, what they use and stuff so people can understand, because the media comes out and, they portray it to, be akin to, a terror attack. So it's important that people know what the deal is. Winston, we were talking about Stuxnet during the break, and I threw a video up in the chat room for the people that are there. And for the listeners, it's on just go to YouTube and type in Stuxnet, cyber warfare by Israel and the U.S., and it'll bring up the video. But it explains about Stuxnet and everything. You yourself have actually seen Stuxnet, correct?
Yes. Through some of the work that I do in the information security industry, we come across all sorts of malware code, and Stuxnet was one of the samples that we've come across.
And when I was talking to you about this yesterday, you can go on YouTube and you can literally see people pulling Stuxnet apart. Like they video themselves pulling it apart right there on YouTube. So this thing is kind of open source. Now it's been traced back to Israel with being created by Israel with the help of the United States, and it was tested with the help of the United States at the Bushehr nuclear facility. What I want to know is how, since it's been, they let the cat out of the bag, since it's been out, how mutated has it become? Are there hybrid versions of this that we don't know about yet?
I would imagine so. Any type of sophisticated malware source code gets leaked onto the open internet. It's happened with a few banking Trojans, and it's happened with Stuxnet and a whole bunch of others. Previously, the secret or private code just becomes openly available, and people. I'm more than certain people are using chunks of that code for their own projects. And what was neat about Stuxnet is it had so many unique qualities to it that other malware didn't have. It had a few of its own Windows zero-day exploits on it, which means exploits on Windows machines that people previously hadn't discovered, and so they had their own methods of entry pre-programmed into the virus that weren't public, and they became public once that code was revealed. And what was also interesting about it is it was targeting SCADA systems, which are the actual modules that control physical infrastructure like nuclear facilities and power plants. And for the most part, hackers don't really care about any of that stuff. It's all pretty old, and there's not really any way to monetize it. So for the most part, it's kind of been left alone because out of lack of interest. And ever since the the federal government's been pushing their whole critical infrastructure, cybersecurity protection aspect. They'll trying to sell methods to lock that down. Then all of a sudden you start to see things like Stuxnet emerging and then being leaked onto the open market, because now all of a sudden these contracts have to get signed.
Well, it's like when the Bush administration uploaded the instructions on how to build an atomic bomb and right to the internet, and they uploaded in Arabic, mind you. They uploaded the instructions. You can go look it up on YouTube or Google. Just type in Bush administration uploads instructions on how to build a nuke in Arabic to the internet. And they were like, oh, we accidentally did it. Yeah, you accidentally did it. Right. Mm-hmm. Just at the same time that they're trying to terrify people and convince them that, the boogeyman is coming to get us, so they need to take away all of our rights. It's ridiculous. And now they're doing it with the internet. And this whole Stuxnet thing, they admit, you have to, see, this is what really pisses me off about it. They admit, Israel and Hillary Clinton have admitted, our Secretary of State, that Stuxnet was tested by them and then used in Iran. Okay? That's why they haven't gotten that reactor up yet, because it got all jacked up. Now, you can't send that in through the internet. Okay, let's get something clear. Winston will back me up. None of the infrastructure is connected to the internet. They might have an internet connection to, like, go on YouTube or watch porn or whatever the hell these guys do at work, okay? But they're not connected to the internet, okay? It's not like in the movies where, some terrorist can take out an airport and drop planes from his laptop computer, miles away. Okay, you'd have to know somebody on the inside and get into the system that way to be able to take over a system like that.
One of the properties of the Stuxnet is that it spreads through USB infection. So it's just funny to me to imagine a bunch of CIA guys pulling up to the front of the nuclear reactor and just throwing a bunch of USB sticks into the parking lot and going, all right, let's wait a week, see what happens.
Exactly. Like, there has to be somebody on the inside that carries it in. Hence the term inside job. And the video I put in the chat about Stuxnet, you'll see I found an article, one of many, and I show the whole article where they admit that they tested it. The U.S. and Israel tested it in Israel, and then they went and attacked Iran's reactor with it. So while the world was getting hyped, while we were getting hyped, is Israel going to bomb it? Is Israel going to bomb it? Everybody was worried about bombs and conventional weapons, and they had somebody on the inside with something as simple as a thumb drive with a virus on it. And they still haven't been able to power it up, because right now, if Iran turns on the reactor, it'll cause a nationwide blackout. So they can't turn the reactor on right now, which that buys Israel and the United States more time, at least in their eyes. So, of course, it's a tactical weapon. And don't think that they don't have Mossad agents inserted into Iran, because that would just be an asinine thought. They have Mossad everywhere, including here in the United States. So let's get our heads out of our butts. And they have hackers that work for them just like we do. Okay?
The article from the UK that talked about that 1 out of 4 hackers is an informant, I'd say that is almost certainly the case, and might even be lowballing it. The majority of hackers, if they're good enough, they either have a job with some type of Defense Department, financial institution, or directly with the government or some contractor, and then a lot of the ones that get in trouble, there's really haven't been any hackers that are been known to keep quiet while being questioned. Most of them will turn. One of the only hackers that never snitched on anyone was Kevin Mitnick. Pretty much everyone else flips the moment they're put under pressure. So the government basically has their choose of the best, has their choice of the best, either by squeezing them and making them work for free to avoid prison, or just straight paying them.
And Now, would you be referring to people like when you were referring to, the guys that will rat on people and everything? Would you be referring to people like, what's his name, Adrian Lamo or however you pronounce his name, the little drugged out nerd that sent Bradley Manning to prison?
Yep, he's one of them. He's one of the people who were. He was just being. He did about 6 months of house arrest on some attacks that he did, and I guess he's been steadily, just kind of cooperating with them the whole way through till present day. And his most recent example of that is when he turned in Bradley Manning for WikiLeaks, and that's him. He posed as a minister and a journalist to earn his trust, and then burned him to the FBI and DOD, DIA, and all those fun people.
And I've showed you the one internet that he did with Al Jazeera, and you can see that kid is completely drugged up. What do you think about the whole situation with him? Because you told me a little bit of interesting details. And we're going to be going to break, but I want to pick up with that on the other side. Winston's got some really, really intriguing info about this kid, Adrian Lamo. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back. This is the final segment of this Friday edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. Remember, coming in September, the second week, during the week, we're going to be going to 2 hours on Wednesday and Friday. So I'll be going from, instead of getting off at 11, we'll be going on till midnight. So it'll be 10 to midnight, Wednesdays and Fridays, and then, as always, from 5 to 7 on Sundays. All Eastern Standard Time, of course. And look forward to a new show on Monday called Manic Mondays, coming up around the same time in September. So all new original programming for you guys. We're trying to build a network up and give you guys as much original programming that from us ourselves, not from other networks, but from us ourselves. So stay tuned for that. Now, this last segment, I want Winston pretty much just to wrap up what he thinks. What do you think is coming down the road if we don't, try to show people what's going on, and what can we do to try to stop them from pulling this off? Is there anything we can do, at least in your eyes?
Familiarize yourself with basic encryption practices, PGP encryption, GPG encryption. Learn how to keep your emails, actually private and secure, not by just with secure passwords, because you have to assume everyone has your password already. You learn to use encryption tools. For instant messaging, you would use Pigeon as your instant messaging client with the OTR plugin, which is the off-the-record messaging plugin that will keep AOL from being able to snoop in on your chats, because it uses public key private key encryption, and using PGP for your email. It takes a bit of a learning curve. You probably spend a day learning how to set it up and get it working, but it's going to be critical to keeping yourself safe and unmonitored just for basic conversation within the very near future.
And where can people go to at least acquire some of this knowledge so they can learn how to encrypt their stuff and protect themselves? Because, you're going to have, without a doubt, the feds are going to try to crawl into your computer and into your back pocket via your internet connection. So where can people learn to do this stuff?
Actually, as of now, there really isn't a single source for the average person to be able to go and learn easy step-by-step encryption. But I guess it's a good idea. We should probably start that up as one of the projects for the Truth Movement, and I guess I'll work on throwing something like that together. Just a basic all-in-one source where people can learn and go and learn how to do some very basic cryptography practices to keep themselves safe.
Yeah, 'cause I think that would be a real good idea because it's imperative that people at least have a basic understanding, you know.
Yeah, everything that's out there now is way too technical, way too computer science student, white paper, mathematical theory analysis.
Yeah, you'll
garbage.
get 3 sentences into it, and they'll be like, "I'm out."
Yeah, exactly. We'll probably work on putting something together where it's just screenshots, step by step. Here's a YouTube video. Download this. Click next, and now you're encrypted. And also,
you'll throw it up on Federal Jack. That way, people can just access it there for free.
Yep.
Okay.
And in addition to OTR for your instant messaging and PGP for your email, using TrueCrypt on your hard drive to actually encrypt your files, so that in the event law enforcement wants to take your computer, analyze your computer, it's just a scrambled bunch of gibberish that they can't get access to without your keys. And but yeah, I guess that's all stuff we'll put up on the site once we get it underway.
All right, cool. Because I think it's really important, and you've given away stuff before too. You used to give away. We used to have software that people were able to download. It was a recovery program, right?
Yeah, actually, it might still be up on Federal Jack. Let me see if I can access it. Yep, it's still there. Actually, it's from 2009. The software's on there is a bit dated. There are newer versions, but all the software I spoke about can be gotten from federaljack.com/2009cd-rom.zip. This was a CD-ROM that was distributed at several conferences that has a PowerPoint presentation that was put together that it does exactly what I was saying I was going to put on that website. Very simple step-by-step instructions on how to get your communications encryption secured for people who don't really. It's for non-technical readers and people who don't really want to spend their lives researching this garbage. They just want to keep themselves secure while they're using it. And so, yeah, that's federaljack.com/2009cd-rom.zip. It's a zip file that has a PowerPoint and a bunch of software on there. So feel free to poke around and be sure to update because the software is dated by now.
So once they download it, they can just get the free update. You know, I'm sure there's an update button or whatever. And
right.
Probably when they install it, it'll tell them, hey, there's a newer version.
Correct.
All right, cool. And you were actually able to use the recovery software on your own stuff, were you not?
Yeah. There's basically we found out on some of our projects where we tracked the activities of corrupt law enforcement officials. We find they don't like to be filmed, and they erased one of our cameras, and we managed to use some of the software that we have on that CD-ROM to do recovery. So if you ever have any software that's forcefully deleted or any pictures or video that's forcefully deleted when you're out trying to spread the truth, you can use the tools on that CD-ROM to simply undelete the files that the whomever might have tried to erase off your camera.
Yeah, I saw the footage of you getting tackled, and for people that don't know, Winston got taken down pretty hard, and all he did was videotape cops, violating somebody else's civil rights, and then when he actually complied with what the officer said, I can't repeat some of the things he said on air, but he, pretty much get the F out of here, get the F out of here. And Winston turned around and walked away, and he was smart. He kept the camera rolling, and about 5-6 seconds later, you hear the cop come running up, thunk, 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 and he just completely tackles him. And he had his back to him. He was no longer first of all, he was never a threat. But even if the cop considered him a threat because he was facing him, he was now even legally not be considered a threat because he was walking away and he had his back to him. If the cop had shot him, it'd be considered murder. So by tackling you, that was completely out of line. And then didn't that cop end up going to jail a couple of years later? Isn't there an interesting anecdote to that?
Yeah, not that cop. One of the cops who was part of that group and processed the arrest. Yeah, he's currently sitting in federal prison for he's sitting in federal prison on a kidnapping charge because he got fired from law enforcement. You can Google his name; it's a real funny story. Richard Anastasi, and basically you look him up. He's your typical dirty, mobbed up cop, probably connected in with all sorts of shady doings in Miami Beach. He was a crooked Miami Beach cop, and eventually got fired from there. And then basically some Russians were using forged stolen credit cards to have stuff sent to his house, and whether he was in on it or not, who knows? Probably was, but maybe he wasn't. But for whatever reason, he decided to kidnap the guy who was picking up the carded merchandise, and held an assault rifle to his head, threatened to cut off his balls. Had his partner, one of his partners there, who was had also done time for some kind of Forex scam they were running, and basically tried to extort $100,000 out of the guy's mafia crew. The guy was just someone picking up drops, and they ended up torturing him the whole night. The guy got $500 wired from his mom to Russia. They showed up to his house and trashed his house in front of the roommates. Turned out the guy they were harassing and trying to extort was also an FBI informant. So he just called his handlers and was like, "What's up with this crazy crooked dirty cop like shaking me down for money I don't have?"
Karma's a bitch, isn't it?
Yeah.
I hope he hears this broadcast one day and hears me laugh at him, pathetic loser. Real quick, we got about a minute. What you in a nutshell, when you with what's his name, the kid that ratted on Bradley Manning, Lamo, you said that there was some interesting stuff. He went to a psych institution and then came out on medication, and then he opened his mouth about Bradley Manning.
Yeah, about 2 weeks before the whole Bradley Manning story broke, Wired magazine published an article that Adrian Lamo had lost his book bag, and he called the police to report his lost book bag. The police show up and think he speaks weird. Literally, that's what they wrote in the report. He speaks strangely, and then they put him in. Then they held him under some kind of like California's version of, I guess, a Baker Act or something, where they just they hold you if they think there's something wrong with you mentally, and they hold you for 72 hours. And then when he saw a judge, the judge declared that he needs to stay for an additional 9 days, and then after all of that, he comes out and it's emerged like, oh yeah, he was they diagnosed him with depression, but now he's diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, and we changed his medication. And when you talk to him, he's real. He's like, thank you, government, thank you for changing my medication. I love the government now. I thank you for holding me there. I was I managed to play with the computer as well as in the mental asylum. Yay, government. And then shortly after that, the whole Bradley Manning story broke, and he's kind of been in sort of a zombified state since.
Wow. Well, way to sum it up. Winston, thank you for coming on. It's been a great show. Guys, thanks for listening. Again, September, we're going to 2 hours. Check out my YouTube channel.